So, welcome everybody to this taster session for our Athena Leadership Intensive, which is our flagship women's leadership program, which we're running in November this year. We usually run twice a year, and we've been running it now for 10 years. And so the purpose really of this call is to hear more about what the program could potentially do for you and what it can offer you, who we are, because we know it's people by people, and you want to know who you're working with and who you're spending your time with, and whether they're people who you resonate with and who pique your interest and curiosity. And there'll be plenty of, we'll give you a taste of how we work, some simple experiences, some of the exercises that we use, which we think are pretty special and unique. Chance to ask your questions. And our intention is that you go away feeling uplifted and inspired and connected, whether or not you continue to work with us. And we also invite you to join our community. We run monthly webinars that are open to all women at no cost as part of our give back. So you are very welcome to join those. And I know some of you have taken part in our regular webinars this year already. So you're familiar with how we work. So we say a little bit about our origin story, who you would be working with. So Purpose Power Presence was founded by Hetty Einzig and I 10 years ago. A chance cup of coffee in a cafe. We'd been introduced. In fact, I'd gone to Ecuador on a wilderness trail and rights of nature conference, got chatting to one of the guys in the group, and he said, "Oh, Hetty Einzig's interested in doing some work on women's leadership." So we met up with a coffee when I was back, and the joke was that we lived 20 minutes apart from each other in London, and I had to go to Ecuador to connect with her on this topic. And what we felt was that we saw that women were playing small and were a sort of underused resource in the world, and such a need for wise, generous, authentic leadership. And we saw too many women trying to sort of squeeze themselves to fit into the shapes provided by what we call the alpha normal workplace. Workplaces that are really designed for a certain model of work that's really outdated now. So we created the Athena Leadership Programme, and we've been running it for 10 years now. And I think probably about 250 women now are part of our community, and we gather regularly in our online Zoom sessions. So you're part of if you join us, you're part of a big and vibrant and growing community of very diverse women. In more recent years, we've been joined firstly by Tracy Fox, who is a colleague of mine from the mediation world. And she's a leading mediator in the UK, also a Henley Business Train coach and a non-executive director, and currently training to be a psychotherapist as well. And our most recent joiner, which we're really thrilled about, is Kieran. And I'll invite Kieran to introduce herself as well.
Thank you, Liz. Great to be here. Great to see you all. I'm familiar with a couple of you and great to meet some new faces. So I'm Kieran. I actually came onto this programme a couple of years ago. It was something introduced to me by my coaching supervisor. So I'm an executive coach. I've spent the last sort of 3.5 years working in financial services, delivering a leader coach programme. And kind of my bread and butter before that, if you like, is people and culture. So I've always loved working with people, but really I'm passionate about working with diversity and also with women, right? A lot in my coaching conversations, I become familiar with the challenges that we face as women in the workplace. So I'm really delighted to sort of transfer a lot of that experience into this programme, whether that's you joining some of those webinars that Liz mentioned, or actually for us to physically see you on this programme that we're going to be talking about today. So I mentioned the challenges just now, right? So the challenges that we face as women. And as I go through these, I just wonder how much of this that you recognise, right, that you might come up against. So there's some of those external demons that we meet, the poor leadership, right? Poor leadership that we witness in others, the patriarchy, the patriarchal society, that we see a lot of men leading at the top. How do we kind of take some of those roles and own our space more? We have a lot of poor role models. So how do we challenge some of those poor role models and come forward and make space for our own self? And then that real uncertainty in the world. There's a lot going on, whether that's kind of politically, some of that kind of instability or that volatility, it can really create fear for us to be able to step forward. And perhaps we feel kind of that hesitation. So how do we acknowledge some of those challenges, those external demons, and find our power in those? And then you have those internal demons. So that self-doubt. How many times have you tried to do something and then that inner voice is saying to you, oh, you're not quite ready, or you're not quite good enough? Yeah. The imposter syndrome, or as I like to call them, imposter moments. Feeling like we're a fraud, feeling like we don't deserve to take up that space, even though the evidence says otherwise. The amount of times in some of my coaching conversations, we talk about, oh, I'm not quite good enough for this and I don't deserve to take this place. But actually, the performance rating says otherwise, right? So how are we challenging some of that evidence? Not a leader mindset. So believing that leadership is for other people, but not ourselves. Yeah, not for you. Not noticing yourself as a real leader. The emotional load. So carrying the weight of caring for everyone else all the time, whether that's at home, whether that's at work. It shows up, all around us, that real emotional load. And again, maybe thinking that that's not someone else's role and it's our role to look after other people's emotions. And then the organisational load. So whether that's juggling logistics at work or at home, those tasks, those invisible responsibilities that really drain our energy. I think about this pretty much every night when I'm organising the house, right? That real organisational load. And I think, right, how do I become better at sharing this? And so again, just think about how some of those external demons and internal demons show up for you. And then the community that we're building. So Liz mentioned you're now part of that community and we're delighted to kind of have you here for that. But really what we notice is that there are so many brilliant women who do not always notice that they're brilliant. They don't always see their brilliance. And what we are delighted to kind of offer to you as part of this community, or kind of if you come on and join the Athena programme, is that you can show up and really own your purpose, power, presence and begin to really align with that or realign with that. Yeah, because sometimes we align with it, but it gets lost kind of in the busyness of life. So we want you to realign with that and feel more equipped and ready to take on the world. And that kind of metaphor of take on the world is your world. So how you like to take that on, whether that's the kind of upcoming project or that side hustle that you've been avoiding, or something great that you have to offer to the world, but you just don't know how to take that first step. So we would like to support you on that journey, again, regardless of kind of how you decide to join us, offering that support to you.
It'd be great to hear, as we were a relatively small group, maybe just hear how you resonate with those challenges. What's uppermost for you at the moment? Free to unmute yourself and...
So I don't mind adding something.
Yeah.
Certainly the kind of out of work organisational load that adds to my day. And I guess I would add another word to this, which is the guilt of maybe when you do feel like you're getting a little bit progress there and a little bit of that, how can other people help me, but still dealing with the guilt of that. And then thinking, well, how do I deal with that side of things so that I can continue in such a way and allow the time for the other part of me that I want to kind of, I guess, shine a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. So true. Feeling pulled in a million different directions and never feeling, where's my space?
Yeah.
That really relates to a point that we're coming on to as well, Stacey, about kind of the busyness, right? And then not being able to get to what we want to get to.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So,
anyone else want to share what they resonate with on some of these points?
I noticed that I keep looking at the internal demons.
Yeah.
And I find that interesting because, and there's a lot going on in the world out there. I'm wondering to what extent it's just a question that I have given up on the world, and that's why the internal demons are speaking so loudly. I'm hearing them so loudly, at least right now.
Yeah, I think it's a really fair point, the relationship between the two, because what we see is that women internalize things that are really about our environment very often. And in coming together and looking at this, what they see is, oh, it's not me, it's not a deficiency in me. There's something in my context that isn't necessarily very healthy. And how do I find a community to not not get caught up in that. Yeah. So I think just being able to separate out what is my context and what is me is a huge part of what we explore over the 2 days. And often that's one of the most transformative and really profound shifts that happen as a result of doing the program. That's something that stays with the women who go through it. Yeah. Okay. Shall we move on?
Yeah, sure.
Mm.
So why Athena? Why join us for this Athena Intensive Leadership Programme? Well, Athena is the goddess of wisdom and courage. So the name of the programme is very much inspired from that. But Liz, as you talk about kind of that coffee shop meeting with Hetty 10 years ago,
Yes.
tell us a bit more about where the name Athena came from, what inspired you.
Yeah. So one of the key aspects of how we work was that we wanted to move beyond the sort of bog standard business school leadership type programs and draw on resources that aren't typically used. So particularly working with the imagination and working with the body. And we see that using archetypes. So, we have these archetypes in our culture handed down from ancient Greece. And, Athena stands for something. She represents a certain sort of force. Yes, that sense of wisdom, dignity, courage, taking the time to listen within and listen to others, and then take action in a way that's powerful and decisive and has an impact in the world and has cut through. So so she's a strong, there's a certain degree of warrior energy, but also there's the softness, the femininity of her as well. So I feel that, and one of the things that we really encourage is that we don't have to do everything on our own. There's all sorts of sources of strength around us that we can draw on. And one is the power of archetypes and archetypal energies. And yes, Athena spoke to us. Yeah.
Thank you, Liz. Yeah, I think that covers off the next couple of points nicely as well. That wisdom that Athena offers us and we can offer to ourselves. So the answers that you have within you and from wise people that you know, and how are you leveraging some of those answers that are within you? How much are you in tune with yourself? How much are you listening to those gut feelings, or does your mind or heart take over? So we'll really tap into you finding and utilizing that wisdom as well as courage. Yeah, so really turning insight into action. And thinking about the allies that you have to support you. You're not alone. And we very much role model that on the programme because there's a lot of the partnership and group working. We hold that space in a very sacred way. So why women only? Well, I think it's important that we role model taking up that space. Yeah, so we want to create that safe and transformative space. So it's definitely not about kind of men bashing or male bashing, but it's just really owning our spaces we mean to go on.
So, getting down more to the nitty gritty, what difference does the program make? How will you feel? How will you feel and act differently as a result of going through the program? And this is the sort of transformation that we have observed consistently over the 10 years that we've been running the program. The sorts of things that women come in with, the sorts of things they're grappling with, are usually that pervasive sense of not being good enough, not being enough, which then leads into holding back perhaps on your ideas in meetings, not speaking up, playing small and waiting for permission, and then all getting dealt with the busy, taking care of everybody else's priorities and needs and what's urgent, rather than actually what's really important. When I look back on my life, what will I have been happy that I have most proud of? What are my real deep priorities, my sense of purpose? And by taking the time to really work on a sense of purpose and craft something, moving on from that sense of doubt and sense of isolation. So what the transformation is into is a sense of, I believe in myself, I am enough. And that on its own is so huge, which then flows through into an ability to speak with clarity and confidence. And so many people are afraid of public speaking, or afraid of pitching their ideas, of enrolling other people in their vision. Who am I to do that? And yet what we find consistently is, given the right tools, the women who come on our program are all wonderful communicators, and they can move people powerfully with their ideas and their vision. So And the journey to get there is much quicker than you think, given the right environment and tools. So then a sense of power and a willingness to step into visibility and to be seen. And then leading on to making time for what's really important, leading with a renewed sense of purpose, not just dealing with everything. And then that deep sense of grounded presence. And we all know that when we're in the presence of somebody who just makes us feel safe, secure, yet also uplifted and inspired, as opposed to the person who makes us feel anxious, on edge, walking on eggshells. And we can learn how to be that person who makes other people feel safe and inspired. And then finally, the motivation, the energy to actually grasp the opportunity, go for that thing that you want to do and make it happen. So that's consistently the results that we've seen over the 10 years that we've been running this programme.
Thank you, Liz. I feel like I can speak very genuinely about what
Yes.
makes us different, because I joined the programme a couple of years ago, as I mentioned, and I was delighted to come over and shadow the programme again earlier this year. So look, there are small intimate groups, and I mentioned that already. We kind of work with a group of up to 12 roughly, and that's so that we can really get to know each other, hold that space for each other, but really build on that deep connection and hold that safe and sacred space for one another. We work with the whole body. So again, this was very interesting for me, very different for me when I joined the programme. Something I felt a little bit kind of dubious about at the beginning, but actually as I worked through a lot of the exercises inspired by leadership embodiment, I noticed and acknowledged how useful they are. And I now utilise those in my coaching as well, and kind of in my day-to-day. So we work with the head, heart and gut, really kind of understanding some of those emotions that might show up, or those gut feelings, what they mean, how our mind might tell us otherwise. So we'll kind of work with all parts of the body, and we'll talk you through a centering exercise just shortly. We have diverse and multi-generational participants from all backgrounds. And that's, again, something we're all passionate about as a team, but something I'm extremely passionate about as well. Regardless of kind of your level of experience, everybody's voice and experience matters in the room. So again, that's something we would love for you to kind of add to in terms of that diverse community. And then the word community has come up a lot today. So again, I think that's something that's extremely important for us, because you will be, and you already are, part of that community of women to provide ongoing support. And that's something that we've noticed as the programme has ended. Actually, it doesn't end there, it begins there, because people really have that opportunity to think about all of the things they wanted to do and how they start. And so for that ongoing support, they can lean on one another, and we have multiple kind of ways that all of the community keep in touch, as well as the offerings that we put back out. So that's what makes us different. And I'd now like to invite you to actually just experience this for the next few minutes in terms of working with the head, heart and gut. And Liz is going to take us through a centering exercise. I appreciate you don't all know each other and you're on camera, but it is so safe. So I'd really like for you to just work with us on this for the next few minutes or so. And then we can perhaps notice what you notice. So Liz, over to you.
Thank you very much. So what I want you to do is to just take a moment to think about a situation in your life that's moderately stressful. So just bring something to mind, not the most stressful thing you go, but this sort of moderately stressful, annoying, and call that to mind. And now just notice what happens in your body when you call that to mind. Notice, do you tense up? Notice what posture's like. Do you become perhaps more slumped? Notice what the breathing's like. Maybe it becomes tighter, restricted, more shallow. Take a moment without any judgment to register what happens. Notice what thoughts are like, the shape of them. Are they jagged, spiky? And notice what emotions you're feeling. There's some degree of anxiety, frustration, sadness. Let's take a moment to register at those different levels, what happens in your body, your feelings, your thoughts. I'm going to ask you to feel your feet on the ground, feel your sitting bones on the chair, your spine, uncross your arms, put your arms relaxed, perhaps resting on your knees. And bring your attention to your spine. Just take a moment to lean into your spine, feel your spine there supporting you. We really take our spines for granted, but it's always there supporting us. Now bring your attention to your breaths, and I'm going to invite you to take a breath in, and as you breathe in, imagine the breath going up your spine, all the way up to the top of your head, lengthening, growing a centimetre or two. And now I'm going to invite you to exhale and sigh the breath out. Imagine the breath going down the front of your body, sending any tension or stress down into the earth. Once again, I'm going to invite you to breathe in up your spine. And as you exhale, I want you to think of someone that makes you smile as you sigh that breath out. Soften your chest and think of someone that makes you smile. Let that smile come to your face. Or it could be a place, just something that makes you smile. Now I want you to stretch your arms by your sides and wiggle your fingers. So stretch, wiggle. And if you feel like it, you can stretch out either side around you, really filling up the space around you, above your head. And just enjoy that feeling of stretching. We spend so much time contracting, hunched over our laptops or whatever. Really stretch. And then just look around the space you're in, look into the four corners, and fill the space that you're in. Just feel your presence radiating out. And once again, come back to feeling your sitting bones on the chair, your feet on the ground, feeling your belly full and solid. Lean into your spine. And now bring to mind that moderately annoying situation. And notice how you feel about it now. How do you feel more resourceful? Does it feel like it's shrunk a little bit inside? Perhaps it's a bit further away. It's less all-consuming, less in your face. And notice the shape of your thoughts. Are they perhaps a bit smoother, a bit more spacious? And your emotions, is there more of a sense of possibility, less contraction? Do your posture and your breathing. Notice if your breathing has changed. So maybe we could get a couple of responses, either if you in the chat or anything you noticed what shifted. Simple exercise. The situation hasn't changed, but you've changed how you're organized, and usually what people find is they feel more resourceful as a result of that. So that's a very simple taste of leadership embodiment, which is an embodiment technique draws from the Japanese martial art of Aikido and mindfulness. And it's about how we use our posture, our breath, our intention to organize ourselves in a way that we feel more resourceful, we feel more connected with others, and we have greater clarity when we act. We feel less impacted by the slings and arrows of everyday life, and our own sense of resourcefulness, resilience, ability to act, and ability to bring others with us when we act becomes expanded. It's a very powerful practice I've been studying probably for about the last 20 years or so. And we find, and we introduce these techniques throughout the program and seed them in at different points. And often women say it's one of the most transformative and unusual, one of the things that really comes as a surprise if they've never encountered these practices before. And in a world where everything is conspiring to make us feel less than powerful, or just modeling an unhealthy sort of power over, I find this practice brings me back to myself, brings me back to what can I do in the situation? What positive difference can I make? Rather than being sucked into the drama that's going on in the world at the moment. It's, for me, one of the best antidotes to that. So we will go into this in more detail in the programme. So this is where we'll talk through the detail of what we cover on the programme, and then we'll have a time for you to ask any questions you have. So as I said, it's 2 days, intense programme. Day one we look at one of our strap lines. It's from surviving to thriving to changing the rules of the game. So going from just trying to keep your head above water to feeling I'm thriving for myself to how do I actually change things around me as well. Day one is very much a sort of inward looking day, just a chance to go within. So we look at what are the influences that have formed you as a leader? Who has been influential in your life, and what lessons did you take from them? So really looking at where you've come from and what has formed you and shaped you. And so much of modern life just sees us as this atomized bubble, that we're not connected to some larger history and lineage. So taking the time to look at those influences we find is very powerful. Then we start to introduce the embodiment practices in a very manageable bite-sized chunks, so which we then sort of layer and build on. But you're immediately getting that felt sense of, oh, I can really change how I'm experiencing myself, and by extension, how others experience me in very simple ways that don't require lots of thinking and psychologizing, through very simple, deceptively simple practices. We then spend a significant chunk of time in exercise where we take you through really reflecting on what your purpose is. Some of you might be familiar with the Japanese idea of the ikigai. So, what am I good at? What do I love? What are my values? Does the world need? So really substantial, the luxury of really being able to reflect on that and take a deep dive into it in a way that we hardly ever have the chance to do that in life. Then we take the embodiment practice into how do we listen to maybe hard feedback or challenging conversations without getting triggered and without taking it personally. And wow, what a difference it makes when we can unhook from that and be able to really hear people without becoming triggered. So do a whole piece around listening. And then we look at power, the way that, one of our key strands is what is healthy power? And we have so many examples in the world at the moment of unhealthy power and power over and power that's abusive. So to shift from power over to power with, and to also use the model of the drama triangle. Some of you may be familiar with this. It comes from transactional analysis. So it's understanding the persecutor, victim, rescuer dynamic. And I have to say, as somebody who's trained as a psychotherapist, it's probably the single most useful psychological theory I've ever come across. It's so simple yet profound, and as a way of lens of looking at team and organizational and interpersonal dynamics and stepping out of power over and into a modeling of healthy power. It's extremely valuable. Then we move into day 2. This is the more sort of outward looking day. So having done that reflection and introspection, we do a whole piece around risk taking. This is something often women are criticized for. It's like, okay, men are the risk takers, women are too cautious. And so we look at actually what is healthy risk taking and when are the times that you've taken a risk in your life and it's paid off. So hearing our stories of risk taking and taking some learnings from that is incredibly powerful. We then look at very specific leadership models, and we draw on the work of Dr. Simon Weston of the Eco Leadership Institute, who's a very profound thought leader. And we look at the ways in which women often get pigeonholed as what we think of as the therapist leader, doing all the emotional caretaking, and men get to be the messiah, the hero leader. But, we've known really ever since the sort of banking crisis that the messiah leader is very inadequate for the complexity of our times. So we share with you a model known as eco leadership, which gives a framework for how to think about leadership and how to think of it's much more of a leader as facilitator. How do I get best from everybody else, whilst also keeping my horizon and not getting too drawn into people's individual dramas? So incredibly powerful framework and a way to have a sort of conceptual map of what leadership could look like. And then finally, we take the embodiment and look at how do we speak up for the things that matter to us in a way that isn't oppositional, has clarity and courage, and takes people with us. And then we look at how, when you want to lead change, when you want to enroll other people with your ideas and your vision, how do you do that? And there's a chance to practice that and get feedback in a very safe, controlled environment. We end usually with a wonderful celebration, and then we follow up in a couple of weeks with a Zoom call to check in with people, find out how things are going, and really bed in the learnings from the programme. So that's an overview of what we cover in the 2 days, which has been very much sort of honed and refined over the 10 years that we've been running it. Yeah.
We'll pause there.
Yeah.
Thank you for kind of giving us the time to share all of that information with you. But really, this is over to you now for any questions that you have for us. Any curiosities, queries, questions?
It'd be lovely to hear from you. Barbara, I've seen you've unmuted.
I'm trying to formulate the question in my head. Practical question, that was my first one. Is it a 24-hour thing? In other words, does it stop at 6, or are there evening? Is there an evening
It's
session?
9 until 5:30 each day.
Yeah.
And then we have an optional celebration at the end of day 2, which we very much like you to come to. But, if you've got a plane or a train to catch, we understand. But usually people do stay. Yes.
Yeah.
It's two working days. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I missed the beginning of it, but I'm very taken. I suppose the fact that you just bring yourself, I presume, and whatever bags you have with you, and I suppose it seems to me like there is freedom to open up your own bags and have a little look inside and see what's holding you back. That's my sense of it. Would that be right?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very much so. Very much so.
Yeah.
And very much about you as a person. So you don't have to show up as a role or feel that you have to keep up any sort of mask or front. What we find is we're able to facilitate a way that people can drop into a space of openness and trust very quickly.
Yeah. Because I think if I'm speaking from myself, I would have had a very strong sense of purpose for a very long time. And I'm at that transition stage of, not that, the purpose has kind of changed. Well, how I manifest the purpose or how I work with it has changed. So that's kind of what attracted me to this, was that little bit of discovery about, do I have the same purpose, or has it changed, or is it just how I live it out maybe might change, having been in a leadership role but now not in a leadership role. So that was kind of what had me curious, because when you're not in an actual role, you just have yourself.
Absolutely.
Whereas you can I don't know, take on that role, or that role is part of your life, but actually to be a leadership, or to get those leadership qualities just as a person in your whatever life, is a bit more challenging maybe sometimes.
I think the words that stand out for me, Barbara, I mentioned earlier, are almost like aligning and realigning, right? And depending on where you are, you might be aligning with some parts of it or realigning with some parts of it. And I think all of that goes. And to your point, it is cathartic, but it's also very progressive.
Okay.
Yes. We very often find that women come when they're at some sort of transition point, and it's a chance to pause, take stock, reflect, think about, and then set off in a focused way, rather than just simply carrying on doing what you've always been doing.
Yeah. Okay, that's really good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. If anyone thinks of a question or anything they're curious about, of course, we'll stay on at the end and you can ask us those, or you can get in contact with either one of us individually. We have one last slide to just share with you, which is just around the next steps. So some of the practical things that were picked up on. So the programme will be in Central London. It's run over 2 days, as Liz mentioned, working days. So Monday the 24th and Tuesday the 25th of November. It will be facilitated by myself and Liz. And our offer to you, just in terms of kind of our gratitude of you joining this call today and finding out more information. If you are interested and you book your space by the end of next week, you will receive a discount there with the 15% off. So please do get in contact. And I think I noticed you taking a picture of the kind of synopsis of the programme. It is available on our website as well. So again, if you want us to link that to you, please let us know. But you can find all of that information on our website as well.
Yeah. we just find it so sort of enriching. And I think there's such a need at the moment in the world for wise women to come together and focus on what we can do rather than feeling overwhelmed by what's going on in the world. And I know it really helps me deal with the craziness to just come in and focus on this and think, okay, there's so much riches and wealth with women, and often we can't see ourselves very well. You know, that's why we talk about brilliant women who don't see their brilliance. But we can see it so well in each other. We just look at these women and think, wow, you're amazing, and I love your ideas, and you should really do that, and I'm right behind you. So the power of coming together and encouraging each other. And, you know, the word encourage has the word heart in it. So it's finding that heart where we can really encourage each other, have each other's backs, and go out into the world.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.